Thanks, everybody, for joining us for the Transformation on the Way You Work. I know it's one of the tail-end sessions. My name is Mike Daoust, and I'm the Managing Director of Chrome Enterprise and our go-to-market team, and I'm joined by Vipin Gupta, who is Chief Digital and Innovation Officer at Toyota, and I just found out the award winner last year of the MIT Sloan Leadership Award. I wasn't able to make the dinner, so congrats on that. I'm pretty excited. Yes. Thank you. I'm pretty excited about this one because I had a 15-minute commute to get here. I did spend a lot of time out at headquarters, but I am local to Boston. And Vipin has a flight to catch, so we have a 4:30 we've got to get him out of here for. And for those of you who are from the area, we got a Celtics game to go watch. So we'll prioritize those things. We'd love to see the Dallas Mavericks there as well, too, so we'll see. But no, thanks for taking the time. And I think really what we're going to chat a little bit about today and use the application if you do have some questions. I don't know in the back. We still have the last session's questions up there. So, but Vipin and I have a few, and we've chatted and gotten to know each other a little bit this morning. And I think we've been through a lot the last couple of years where our employees have really enjoyed in many ways, and companies have adapted to the flexibility and working remote. But with that, we're now starting to make our way back to work and what people are calling hybrid. And one of the first questions that we got on the poll was, we've had some fits and starts and some stops here. You know, is this for real this time? And then what are we seeing in our organizations as we move towards that hybrid work? So I'll pass it over to Vipin to sort of start the dialogue here, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, and good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I think this so-called hybrid model is here to stay. I think this is our new normal, as we all know. So in Toyota context, if you can imagine, I think we don't call it hybrid, we call it flex, and I'll explain you why. If you think about our business, we have diverse set of use cases, right? We have a manufacturing side of the business. We got R&D, we got sales and service functions, we got financial services, corporate functions. And what we realized was that there's no like one solution that's going to fit all of them. Everyone has a slightly different need and slightly different approach. So our keyword became flexibility. And we call it a flex working model. And so each of these major functional areas have created their own kind of a working model, if you will, in a broader framework or a broader architecture, which allows people to work either from home or from offices if they choose to. And I think that's the point. It's a flexibility, but it is also a very empowering model. And I think that, to me, is what is exciting. If you go back pre-COVID days, we had only one way to operate. It was to go to office every day. Now, each one of us have a choice, and we are empowered to make that choice on when we want to go to office or when we want to work from home, which I will call as, if I'm doing some solo work, or if anyone is doing some solo work, for example, programming a software program one day, they don't have to come to the office. Whereas if there's a team collaboration that is going on, team event, and they come to office. So if it's a me time, you can be at home. If it's a we time, you go to office. And I think that shift, to me, is going to stay with us for a long, long time. So for us, as we were designing this model, we went through a lot of what we call as a listening network. We engaged our employees in that conversation to shape this kind of a model that I'm talking about. And one of the things that we realized was this kind of a new empowerment, and the choice that we get also brings a lot of new responsibility and also some anxiety around how will it impact them, not only their work, but potentially their performance and growth. So we invested a lot around training and awareness, and we have what we call as a TFS Academy, and that became kind of a center point of how do we help everyone navigate through this kind of a new flex model to help understand what will drive productivity for them, and more importantly, how can they maintain this kind of a growth and their personal development along the way while they are in this flex model. So again, my perspective is this model is going to be here. I think this is our new normal, and I think it is more positive and more empowering and provides more choices.
I couldn't agree more, and I think, you know, just to build on that a little bit, I think and we'll get a little bit into technology as an enabler and the effects that that has had. But I think the flexibility is one piece. I think also the labor force is changing and what their expectations are is changing. And I think I can say, having been at Google for close to 14 years, it used to be you kind of lived near one of the hub offices. Like that's, it was Bay Area, New York, London, Sydney, Tokyo, what have you. And I think what this has taught us over the last couple of years, and many of the leadership folks, and I spent some time at headquarters and sort of had that, you got to be here in order to make decisions and whatnot, is it's changed people's perspectives that you can actually be very productive and efficient, and now it's moved us towards, I think, benefits that are pretty amazing at Google, I do have to say, things like global reset days and work 1 month a year from anywhere you want, and extended carrier's leave and parental leave, things that I think one thing that this pandemic has taught us is that there is some productivity, but we're trying to squeeze as much as we can from the lemon, and sometimes that has effect on people and kind of their day-to-day and their well-being, and I think it has brought it to the forefront, ideally in a good way. I think, I'm just looking here to see if there's any other questions popping up. I mean, I think one that maybe I'll start with is the question that we were grappling with is the new era of flexibility and what the role technology plays, particularly in an inclusive and diverse workplace. And I think one thing that we've benefited from at Google is we have sort of been born and lived in the cloud for many, many years. I've been, since 2008, we've used things like Google Meet. We didn't really do conference calls, particularly internally when we had meetings. So we were pretty equipped to sort of dive in with Chrome OS and Workspace, and then Beyond Corp, which is kind of our security capability. But I think what we found is that there is an evolution, and what we try to do is call it collaboration equity. And I think what we found is that and I'd love to get Vipin's take on this, is that there is this balance of remote and at office, but what one thing remote has done is it's equaled the playing field. So oftentimes if there were people, in the meeting physically, so to speak, there was a little bit of an advantage they had, their opinion, if someone was an introvert versus an extrovert. So one thing that we've seen, and I think seen it all the way up to the leadership level and the executive level, which I think is beneficial to all, is that you got to raise your hand. You got to, if you're not sort of more of an outspoken person, you can put a chat in the window. And I think it has leveled the playing field a bit and allowed folks that maybe weren't a certain persona or in a certain place to have a say. So I think that's one thing that we've noticed at an accelerated rate that has been a benefit out of this. But I don't know if you have anything to sort of add in that.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think it has definitely created a level playing field between what I call introverts and extroverts. So I think today when you are in this kind of a hybrid environment, for example, even now, if someone who is shy of asking a question and standing up, they can easily add a question to Slido or to chat boxes. And I'm seeing that in our town halls, in our meetings, that there is a more interaction taking place, more live interaction taking place. And the participation is much more broad than I think traditionally. It used to be the same 5 people will stand up in the town hall asking the questions. Now there's a much more broader participation. I think that has definitely helped us from a behavior perspective. And I think your question, which is around how the technology is helping drive this flexibility, I think one is this idea. But I also think about this in context of 2 ways. I think there is a workforce that we all have that is directly interacting with customers more often. And then there's a workforce that is kind of behind the scenes collaborating within themselves. And I think that technology is playing the role on both sides. For example, we have a large workforce that interacts with our customers through call centers and our dealers through our call centers. So technology had a significant role to play, as you all know, that when we had to move this workforce to work remotely. So today, 5 years back, if someone had said call centers in this hybrid model, one would have said yes, but in a very unique situation. Now I think it's a very common model, where call centers enabled by technologies, largely cloud-based technologies, where you can be anywhere and servicing the client almost as if you are sitting in the office. I think that's, to me, has been very powerful. Second is to to Mike's point, I think building these technology solutions to create this collaboration equity, the word that you used, I think I like that word quite a bit. It really creates this collaboration equity across the teams, and I think there's a lot of tools and technologies that have been put in place. I also believe, I think these technologies are going to be evolving really, really fast and really quickly. I think this kind of an experience where we see each other on a screen is going to look more like a 1950s TV experience in a couple of years. I think this immersive experience is here to be, and I think it's going to be more and more immersive experience. So we're going to find ways to make this hybrid look more seamless. And that was one of our focus, by the way, from an operational aspect of these things, is how do we make it a seamless experience for our employees when they move from one form factor to another, which is when they move from home, they go to office, everything should work with them seamlessly, as if they have just moved, they have literally not moved from one location to another. So this mindset shift, I think, may be even bigger, where we now think about our workforce, our employees and team members, and providing them the experiences just like we do for our customers. And that elevating that role that we have and our role in that is, I think, changed significantly. For example, we also introduced something called, we call them as digital care centers, which is allowing people when they come to office or otherwise, if they need help with their technology devices, just like you will see in some like Apple stores, the Genius Bar, we'll have them in our offices. So the focus around creating a seamless, uninterrupted, hassle-free experience for our workforce, so that this hybrid doesn't become a friction point, it actually becomes an enabler. I think that became a real focus, and technology plays a huge part in making that experience seamless.
Absolutely. Question here, and Vipin, I don't know if you have any quick thoughts on this one. How do you measure hybrid effectiveness, efficiency, productivity, and the right balance of home versus office? I don't know if you all at Toyota have started to measure this, or maybe within your specific groups, or something on your radar there.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance. So the way we do it, we can talk about it. It's largely based on what we are listening from our employees and workforce. This constant conversation has to be there with our workforce. How is it working? And is it affecting their productivity, personal productivity, team productivity, et cetera? And we collect all this data and we try to draw insights out of the data. To me, I think that's really powerful. Instead of trying to put some kind of mechanical measures and metrics in place. So that's what we have done so far. And interestingly, we also, because we have all access to this data, we do some analytics, for example, around the intensity of email traffic that is going on. Like, for example, we use Microsoft Outlook or Microsoft Exchange. So we can sense from that the patterns. And we did this study, which we did for a different reason, not to measure hybrid, but to really see that is this creating a new kind of stress and the wellness issues with our teams? Because if we are seeing email patterns, meetings that are taking place in odd times, that intensity is growing, it may be a reflection of something else that's going on. So it's a opposite of this question, not only worried about productivity, but worried about the wellness of our workforce. And I think that data helped us.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. There's a couple other questions here that prompt some thoughts in my mind, which is, gets to the effectiveness. And we were doing a talk a couple of weeks ago with someone who was from the Boston area and used this analogy, and the email one triggered it, because Google's always been a very big email culture in general, and I think it's elevated with this pandemic and sort of the working remote, is that it's become even more of a communication vehicle in addition to the other things. But he used this analogy of, Fridays is sort of like reset day, no meetings, but it's sort of this snowplow effect. Yeah. So you snowplow everything to Friday. So now Friday becomes I got to catch up on everything. And we're in this world now where we have kind of one foot in each world, and sort of you're trying to sort of balance those things. So, one of the questions here is there a pushback to getting back to normal in terms of remote in the back to office? I have some thoughts here, but I don't know if you're seeing some of that, Vipin. I mean, for us, I think just how we've handled it at Google, the framework that we're adopting, and it's slowly happening, is a 3-2 model, a very common one, which is 3 in the office, 2 flex or at home. You can now work remote completely if that's what you choose to do, but if you are going to have a desk per se, that's the model that we're trying to move towards. But it's really each leader and how much they want to push that based on the efficiency, the effectiveness, listening to the team, depending on the different roles. And so what I would say is I don't think it's, no way we're not doing this. But I think people are kind of dipping their toe in. They're coming in 1 day a week to start with. They're trying to get used to that commute to work and what's that going to do for the daycare and the life that I've been living the last couple of years. And so at Google, I think we want to move towards people interacting more if they choose to do so in person, because with that comes wellness and all those positive things. But it's not, hey, by this date, we need to be there, but it is a framework. And so I think we've tried to do it in that form, and I think so there hasn't been sort of the absolute pushback, but I think certainly in my experience, folks on my team, some are ready, some are not. And we've sort of allowed that, but we're not sure sort of, how that'll evolve over time.
Yeah, similar approaches here, but it's, is there a pushback to going back to normal or not? I think, I don't think specifically that, but it's happening in our case. But there is always going to be, for any concept, for any new model, there are going to be some early adopters, some people who are going to champion that model, and some are going to challenge that model continuously, I think. So we are seeing that same patterns. On the other hand, I think what we have done is, I believe it is helping us right now, we'll find out, is we are empowering our managers, empowering our leaders to make those decisions with the teams. And I think that empowerment is really, really important. It gives them some autonomy of making those decisions at that level within the broader framework. And that is, I think, going back to this idea of flexibility, I think that's really, really important. And I go back to this idea of all of us. I think there is so much data available to us in our systems, and we have really, we have never given it as much thought as we have given to the data related to customer. We have to really we have to leverage this data that we have about our employees and their behaviors hidden in these emails and meetings and all these kind of things to make sure not only that it is enabling the hybrid model, but it is doing it in a way that it doesn't create a negative effect. And more importantly, when there is a pushback or when there is a comment or some kind of a challenge, there is a data to support that pushback. And I don't think we are doing enough. We should do more of using the data for driving analytics inside.
Great points. I think just on the questions here, I think we need to scroll up a little bit so I can catch that one on the bottom. But there's one here around what are your thoughts on inclusion and hybrid work? I think I know where this question is coming from, which is something we're starting to grapple with and don't have a perfect answer, but it's okay, people are getting back to sort of offsite. Let's get the leadership team together, but there's a couple of folks that don't feel great about doing that at this point, whether they have safety concerns or what have you. And so what we're really trying to sort of not over-rotate on, but ensure is in this world of hybrid is that in all cases possible that we allow those folks that are remote to be included in every aspect of those. Now there's going to be certain things, dinners and get-togethers and whatnot, so we'll have to see how that evolves. But we don't want to create, we were sharing a little bit about our kids in sort of teenage and college years, this sort of like fear of missing out that you see with teenage kids is like, I got to be here and I got to be there. I think what we're trying to do is really try and make sure folks' safety is paramount, and again, their wellness and their well-being, and trying to make sure that they have sort of that equal footing, and in many ways have the technologies that enable that. But again, I don't think it's perfect, and I think once we get beyond sort of the safety pieces, we'll have to think about how do we do that. I think one thing that I've tried to do as we've started to go on site is schedule actually less meetings. So what I'm finding is that we were in this world of like back-to-backs. You just had to go to your fridge and grab a glass of water, you'd be right back into the meeting. So everyone's gotten this back-to-backs. Well, now we have like feet in both worlds, which is you don't have time to do all those. People are bopping around to meetings on site. So when I go on site, what I try to do is really free up my schedule a bit to actually connect with people, to actually say, let's go for a walking meeting for 20 minutes. Let's go walk around the block a little bit, get to know each other again. It doesn't have to be as formal. And I do feel that that's encouraging, because I think no matter what the technology, that connection is really tricky to foster, no matter how good it is. And so I don't know if it's perfect from an inclusive standpoint, but we're trying to sort of make sure people know it's important to us as a leadership team, and then invite them for feedback if there's anything we can do to improve. So I don't know if anything to add there.
Very similar. I think the same approaches. We are all trying these different approaches, but the idea is, I think we have to stay grounded on our underlying belief and values, and I think inclusion matters, and I think diversity is important. So part of this is, again, going back to this idea of flexibility and empowering our leaders to make those decisions, giving them that kind of a broader framework to make these decisions, and letting people choose, I think, as far as possible. I think those are the kind of things that will drive more and more inclusion. But it's a tricky balance. I think it is a balance, and part of this is to also coach and train our leaders on how to make those decisions. I think that is a bigger shift, and as we do this more and more through our sessions, through our TFS, our academy, we're learning that we have to now add to the leadership acumen this one more competency, which is how do you lead in this hybrid flex world. And I think leaders need to be trained, and this is part of the leadership skills and the training that they have to be given, is what does inclusion mean in a hybrid model? And I think we need to arm them with that information. So a lot to be done there. I think it's still a work in progress.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and I mean, it's kind of timely at Google, and there's a question here around managing remote teams need to be far more intentional than in-person management, which can be reactive. What ways have you seen managers empowered better now? I don't know if I have like the empowerment piece other than what Vipin said is like, I think we do need to empower our leaders. We need to train them. We need to enable them. And I think this, like what we're moving towards, we've commonly done sort of a biannual performance management, process, and we're moving more to a quarterly check-in. So let's make sure we're really clear on what the expectations are from here for the next few months. We'll check in as we go along that. And there's a formality to it, but there's an informality at the same time. But it ensures that alignment piece, because I think we all feel it, is that when you're in a leadership position, you kind of only know what's popping up on your screen versus being at the office and sort of sensing somebody's reaction, or you have a water cooler conversation, and you're like, I got to get some time with that person. You don't see that as much. So I think there needs to be a very proactive, I think, which is the question is saying, to that approach.
Yeah, it's also, the timing of all this is very interesting in a way. I think last couple of years have seen acceleration of digital transformation and new kind of digital operating models in most of the organizations, like ours is, for example. We have become very product-oriented, very agile organization that way. And then this kind of shift happened to hybrid model. What is interesting and very positive is that some of the routines or ceremonies that we used to have in the past were designed for something else, and they have evolved into a slightly different. For example, in any kind of a product-oriented agile teams, as you know, there will be a routine called daily scrum every day in the morning or any time in the day you meet. So it was largely designed to manage work, prioritize work. But I think in hybrid model, it adds a significant more value, because that becomes a way to connect with people every day. That forces you to have the conversation, talk to each other, see each other, even on the camera. So it's maintaining that connection and engagement through these routines is also interesting. So how that daily scrum or these meetings have evolved into just driving more and more interpersonal conversations.
Great points. A couple more. I'm watching the clock. We got about 5 or so minutes here. There's one here. The pandemic has posed plenty of challenges. What opportunities and benefits have you seen? And are you most keen to seize and drive for employees and for customers? I'll take this one at the start here, at least from a customer standpoint. I think what we saw just from kind of Chrome Enterprise, so thinking of our business, which is browser and Chrome OS and Chromebooks for large organizations, is When things moved to remote, what we did see was definitely an acceleration of technologies that helped from a security standpoint. There were lots of ransomware attacks, and this is something Chrome OS certainly helps with. Adopting things like virtualization, remotely managing things in a secure environment. And I think what we did see was folks that were kind of dipping their toe into the cloud or things like virtualization, really accelerating that. So enabling everyone to be able to work remote where they may have had desks at home. And so it is something that I think, as we've talked a little bit about, I think elements of that are here to stay, and I think did push us in a direction, and we're a bit biased from a Google standpoint, but pushed us towards the cloud and some of the benefits of that. And so our customers, so a couple, some that, come to mind, Synchrony, a financial services company here in New England, pushed out 5,000 contact center agents to remote, basically within weeks, right? Which normally would have been a 6-month project. They kind of had no choice, and they made it to the other side. And we have a host of others that did that. So I think it challenged sort of the paradigm and pushed people to accelerate things. So I think there certainly are some benefits. I think, there is this balance of, okay, with hybrid, when do we leverage those, when do we not? But I think there's definitely been some pros that our customers have embraced and has put them in sort of a different realm on digital acceleration. Anything, Vipin, on that front for employees and customers?
I think I will also add, I think there's a natural, we have talked about this for years, there's a natural shift left that has taken place because of this. We are really getting closer and closer to driving the experiences for the employees and customers. So it's worrying less about the infrastructure, the right-hand side of the equation, and moving left. I think that mindset shift has now gotten accelerated along with everything else that got accelerated due to COVID.
One topic here, that we found that comes up quite a bit is sustainability. And really, I think it is definitely one thing that we've seen a bit of an acceleration with, just given the environment and things. A question that we at Google, we've been carbon neutral since 2007, 2017. We're the first company to sort of match electricity with renewable energy, and we're really trying to put a goal out there to be carbon-free 24/7 by 2030. We've also seen our customers really push us in this area, and also our ecosystem, so our OEM provider. So, we've really looked to do, Chrome devices that are based on renewable materials. HP, Lenovo, Acer, and others have really embraced that. And like one thing, and then Vipin, I'd love sort of your take from Toyota's perspective, is we actually came out with something called Chrome OS Flex, which is part of an acquisition we made about 1.5 years ago, which allows you to put a Chrome OS operating system on any device, whether it's a Windows device, a MacBook. So you get all the updates and the security pieces, but you don't have to go buy a new device. You can take that one that's 10 years old off the shelf. I don't think we intentionally saw that as, this is going to be a sustainability play, but it's definitely one that customers have pushed us towards and said, this makes a ton of sense because we have these goals. And so that's one that I think we've seen that is one of those ones like, what are the benefits from this that has pushed us there? But I don't know if there's anything that you would add to that.
I think that's a great point. Part of the hybrid model or part of this new way of working and the post-COVID or near post-COVID era is this idea of focus around wellness of planet and the sustainability, et cetera. So in Toyota, obviously, we have a lot of focus around carbon neutrality and sustainability. But one of the interesting things is, as this digital acceleration has taken place, we have become more and more interdependent on various partners and suppliers, just like you said, like various cloud providers, et cetera. So interestingly, it is starting to emerge almost like this interdependency, almost, if you think about it like a manufacturing supply chain, a similar supply chain is emerging around IT area. So we need to now not only understand who are our first-tier partners, but second and third-tier partners. And so in context of sustainability, not only knowing this will help us from a risk management perspective, but it also, in a way, makes us look towards those partners who have similar values and sustainability values like ours. So you're now building these partnerships, maybe for life, and we want to now pick and choose those partners who match our belief system around sustainability. And for Toyota, I think that's a big, big priority.
Great, great. I know we're getting close to that 4:30 mark in your plane. I just have a couple of closing thoughts, but any that you have for the audience here?
No, I think my only takeaway from all this is I think this new model, the flex model, is here to stay. I am very bullish on it, I think, because it does provide this flexibility and choice and the empowerment to kind of a lot of our workforce. But also the part of that is this choice and empowerment comes with a lot of responsibility. And I think we will have to educate our organization to how to maximize this empowerment and choice and how to be most responsible in this new era.
Yeah, I think it's, I couldn't agree more, and we were chatting a little bit this morning, a little bit of the new generation, whether it's Gen Z or, I don't know, I can't keep up with the letters, but there is, with the adoption of social media, a lot of the younger generation is comfortable texting. In-person conversations might be trickier. I do think the pandemic has pushed us to welcoming more isolation, and I think one thing, again, this is the non-tech side of me, which is we do have to find ways to make sure we're connecting with our workforce. We need to empower them, give them the flexibility, but to your point, it comes with responsibility to check on them and have protocols in place to allow that, because I do think the younger generation oftentimes would be okay working remote, but there's cultural aspects that I think value, and if we can do that in an inclusive way, that's the right combination. And I think what I found is it's amazing how resilient our younger generation and in general our workforce is to being flexible. We don't have to have the answer, but I think they do have to feel like they're a little bit heard and we're in it together. So really, thank you for all the questions. I know we didn't get to all of them, but really welcome any feedback afterwards. I know Vipin has to jump, but thank you, Vipin. It's been great to collaborate with you on this as well.
Thank you.